Stinks. Hi, Christine.
Hey. Oop. Hey, how are you?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Hey, Dr. Hartnett.
Hey, Liz.
Liz,
How are you, Warren?
I'm Warren.
Good to meet you.
I can, and my
So that's the three of us. Looking good. Oh, here comes more people.
Good, good.
and my computer keeps telling me I have a bad internet connection, so hopefully this will go off without a hitch.
Yeah. You're coming through fine now, so that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Liz.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going.
I know. It
It's
needs to stop for a little bit.
another day.
Oh, goodness. This weather. I just want to hibernate.
Yeah. Are
And
you
eat.
guys,
Yes.
are y'all working at are y'all going into the office at all? USCCL people?
Christine does more than me.
Yeah.
I go like once a week about.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll be there every day this week. So
Dang.
it helps me stay on task.
Yeah, it is good. In some ways, I don't know, in some ways I get more work done at home, but if there are things that we need to talk
That's
about.
because I'm not there to bother you.
But I mean, talking with you and Valerie is work, gets work done. So yeah, definitely a benefit of going.
We got about 4 minutes until we sort of officially begin. So you'll just bear with us. We'll see if we get some more folks coming in. Yeah, they're coming now.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
How can I get visual? Let's see. Start video. Maybe. Yeah.
Hey everyone.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Camilla.
Christine, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
me, Christine. I waved at you.
Oh, okay.
I didn't, but I'm having like really bad internet connection, so I'm hoping that this
Uh-oh.
will.
Oh, okay.
It's either my internet or this work computer. So we can just blame it maybe on the USC work computer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and dive into this and start our first LISSA open meeting. My name is Warren Cobb. I'm the president of LISSA for the fall 2020 semester. And I am hereby calling this meeting to order. So first thing I wanted to mention was that Laura Thorpe sent out some student satisfaction surveys recently. And if you haven't filled those out, please go find that email that she sent and fill out the student satisfaction survey. They need data so that they can help improve our program. And in some of our more less formal talks, there are definitely a lot of opinions on how some things can be improved. So I would encourage everyone to go fill out the student satisfaction survey. It's a jot form. Most importantly, though, we have with us today Christine Shelek and Dr. Hartnett from the South Carolina Community Literacy Team. And I want to give them as much time as they like to just chat a little bit about what they do and what their organization is about. By way of introduction, Christine, I believe you have a MLIS from the University of South Carolina, and Dr. Hartnett has a PhD in Library and Information Science from USC, if I'm not mistaken. And so you guys certainly know what you're doing out there. So it would be great if you could just start us off with a brief introduction of what SCCCL does, and maybe sort of centered around your mission, actually. And then we're going to keep it pretty informal as far as Q&A with you guys. But we do have, I know that we have some specific things we want to cover, but for right now, why don't we just start with a brief introduction to your organization, if you don't mind.
Okay. And if I start to break up, let me know and I'll turn off my video because that will probably help the bandwidth. So I am Christine Shelek, and welcome to those who I have not met. I see some of your faces and I know some of you, so that's exciting because I'm always excited to see faces, especially during this crazy time that is COVID. I am the executive director of the South Carolina Center for Community Literacy, formerly known as the South Carolina Center for Children's Books and Literacy. And as we all know, libraries aren't just about children and books. So we changed our name almost 2 years ago and are just really excited about the opportunities that we currently have in the center, from, of course, Cocky's Reading Express that you may be familiar with, to professional development that Dr. Hartnett is working on. And we're also a SC Thrive partner site, so anyone can come to our office and apply for Medicaid or SNAP benefits. So that's something that we've done also since changing the name. I have been there for over 9 years, and I did complete my master's in library and information science while I was also working there. So I even see some of you all who I believe may have been in a class with me. So I think that's all I have to add at the moment. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Hartnett, and she can elaborate more on the professional development and more about the center.
Thank you, Christine. And first of all, please call me Liz, for crying out loud. So so as Christine said, I am work with her at Skill, as we call it. And my job is program coordinator. And as Christine also said, I am responsible for professional development for the school, for the iSchool. So that's right now what that entails. Mostly, what's taking up most of my time is working with the University of Washington. It's a pretty interesting project on developing a sort of self-directed platform for professional development, so people can just jump on and complete it without with very little input from us. It's a very cool platform that they use for some of their courses there, and they're adapting it for us. So that's what I'm spending a lot of time on. And then we do workshops for practitioners, librarians, school librarians, educators, and we work with students and faculty at the university too. So also everybody, our team kind of all works together and does all the jobs together, shares the jobs, but I'm tasked with managing our collection, and it is a pretty good collection of children's and young adult books, a little over 10,000 titles generally. And we get the books for free from the publishers because we're the state's review center for children's and young adult books. So they just send them to us, and we're, in turn, we're supposed to share them with practitioners in the field, parents, anybody that we can, whose attention we can get. So we get generally, I'd say 1,000 to 1,500. I didn't look up the number today. Books each year. So as you can imagine, we're all constantly having to weed the collection and move things out to make room for the new things that are coming in. That's pretty much what our GA does a lot of the time, is processing new books and getting the other ones out of the way. If a book is we really love the book and we want to use it for our children's literature courses there, we move it to an instructional collection. But otherwise, we weed the collection pretty hard after the books have been in for 3 or 4 years. And so we're always giving away the books that we weed to school libraries, students, especially in the College of Ed, who are about to become classroom teachers and need to build their classroom libraries. They come and get books from us. And all of our books are really like new, because we hardly have any actual children that come in there. It's adults who are using the books, so they're in great condition and free of charge to the people who come in for donations. So that I always enjoy that part of the collection management. Yeah, Christine, did you have something about that?
Well, I was going to add, we are open. So if you are in town and want to come visit the center and look at the collection and, just check us out, because little library pun there. Please do. We, may not be there every day, so you may want to call ahead of time and make sure someone is going to be there. But we love to have visitors and show everybody this great facility that we have. And I love what Dr. Hartnett calls us, and which is a boutique library, because I really feel like I haven't been to another library like ours. It is very unique, and it's just an awesome place. And
Where
I'm with
exactly?
great people. So.
Where exactly are you now? Because I think you moved, right? Did you move recently?
We used to be we used to be in the state library on the mezzanine level, and now we are right across the street from where we were. So, which is the old archives building. So it really is across the street. We moved 10,000 books across the street in 2012.
Okay.
And we had to hire movers. So we didn't, just pick them up one at a time. But
it's a great space though. People, are always surprised that they didn't ever know about it, because we have a big classroom area and then our work area, and then the collection in there. So back before the pandemic, students would come and study there sometimes. There's a nice quiet place to be.
So I was hoping that you guys could at least start us off to kind of. Now, my track is archival, so I don't deal with a lot of children's issues, but obviously I'm a generalist too, so I'd like to work. I am interning at a public library now, and so I work with children sometimes, but I was hoping you guys could provide us with at least a snapshot of literacy in South Carolina right now, if you have that kind of knowledge readily available, because I'm not sure, I sure don't grasp, is it a huge problem that people are illiterate or underliterate? Is the pandemic causing a negative shift in our sort of in our children's abilities right now? I mean, could you give us sort of a state of the state of South Carolina literacy?
I actually have a few statistics that I gathered up, and I have some slides. If I can share my screen, I could tell you a little bit. It's specifically about youth literacy. Is that a starting point?
Anyway? Yeah, that's a starting point.
Absolutely. And I'm glad it's on your screen, because since I have horrible internet.
It would be
But I will say, I have talked to a couple people throughout the pandemic, and broadband is right up there with this, illiteracy, because kids can't have books or broadband, as I'm experiencing. So it's all one package. So I will be quiet and let Dr. Hartnett show you the slides.
Yeah, well, I think that's an important point, that we don't really know yet the impact this crisis is going to have on reading achievement or the level of literacy. I think it is going to have an impact though on kids in a lot of ways, like just the social and emotional strain that it's having on them. But I don't think the evidence is all in yet. So I'm going to see. Okay, share my screen. Yay. Okay. Now, so you can see the meeting. Or can you see my? Sorry.
I said, there we are. Yes.
Oh, you can see yourselves. Okay. How do I get?
I can see the screen
at the bottom.
Yeah, we can see.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
We're blocking a little bit, but maybe.
How about that?
Can you move it over a little to?
Let me see
it would
if
be
this
my
does
left,
it.
but there you go.
That's working?
Good. It's bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I hope it's not going to be blocked by, I think you can move your pictures around if you need to. So this is from UNESCO, statistics from UNESCO, on just to give you the really big picture of the literacy rates in the world, the United States, and South Carolina, and how they compare. So in the whole world, surprisingly to me, the literacy rate is 87%. That seems very high to me. And they break it down. Of course, you can go look at their data, but they break it down into different groups. And youth tend to be, if you take them as a separate group, tend to be higher than the older adults. And like Southeast Asian countries have the highest levels of literacy according to UNESCO. And then countries that have ongoing conflict, war, that just drives people into poverty, it disrupts education and results in the lowest literacy rates that we find in the world. So South Sudan, and I think this is 2019 data, so it may be different now, but at that time, South Sudan had the lowest literacy rate at 27%, which is very low. The United States is slightly below the world average, just very slightly. Any thoughts on what South Carolina might be compared to the US? So I thought it's going to be really, really low. And it's almost the same. Can you see that? That's 85%. So just below the national average. Not too bad, but there are other statistics that make it look worse. It sounds pretty good right there if you're just looking at the literacy rate. And this is people over 15 and over who can read and write. So just general literacy. And then, so looking at the research on early literacy, one of the biggest factors is poverty. And because obviously it affects nutrition, it affects access to print materials and attendance at school. So those are all, have an impact on learning and reading achievement. And then another thing that the research shows very clearly is that if children are not proficient in reading by 3rd grade, then they're at a higher risk for a lot of problems later on, just academic difficulties in general, and not graduating from high school on time. So the dropout rate among, if you look at their reading scores when they were in 3rd grade, and then you look at the graduation rate, that there's a relationship there. The children who weren't at proficient by grade 3 are not graduating at the same rate as the others, and just general success in life. So that's quite a bit of research has told us that. Another thing that is interesting or important is access to books at home. So if kids have access to books at home, they're much more likely to be proficient readers. And one statistic I found said that 61% of low-income families have no children's books in their homes. So that puts kids again at a disadvantage, kids in poor households. Let's see. Yeah, so access to reading materials is super important, and their tendency, whether or not the child reads for fun or is allowed to select their own reading materials and enjoy, choose what they read and enjoy what they're reading, really has a big impact on their reading achievement as well. Because you can guess there are many things that reading for fun, if you enjoy reading, you're going to read more, right? The more you read, the better your skills become. Also increases your vocabulary because you're reading more words. It increases your understanding and just general knowledge of the world because you're reading about more things and people. And also your empathy for other people, which I thought was interesting. So there's that emotional development aspect of reading for enjoyment. And another term that I came across was, of course, it makes you a more confident reader, but it also builds your reading stamina, which is, like athletes build up their stamina and they're able to keep running for a longer time. They're less prone to injury because they're stronger. Reading stamina is where you're able to engage with the text for longer periods of time. You're able to work through, obstacles in your reading without getting discouraged because you're a strong reader, because you have so much practice, just like the runner who does 10 miles a day or whatever. So those were the important things I found in the literature about youth literacy. And then this slide is just information on South Carolina. I think this data may be 2 years old, a year and a half, something like that. But we talked about how third grade is that point where we really want kids to be reading proficiently because they can work on their reading skills up until third grade, but once they get to third grade and beyond, they're being asked to read stuff to learn things like social studies is a lot of reading, but you're not working on your reading skills. You're trying to learn the content, so if you don't have those reading skills down, you're going to have a hard time grasping the content. So this looks at the number of third graders in South Carolina. There's over 67,000 third graders. And more than half of those tested below state standards in English and language arts. And then it also shows the poverty rate for, on the right side there, for kids in South Carolina, which is higher than the overall poverty rate. And a lot of kids qualify for free and reduced lunch. And this was in 2018. Our kids tested 47th in the nation on the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is also called the National Report Card. So kind of grim. That one's kind of grim.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. So yeah, so then you can think about what can we do, and there are lots of things we can do, and lots of people are doing lots of things that are helping. But we know that having books in your home or having access to books is beneficial. So if you support public library services, and especially public library, as you probably know from working in public libraries, really have an impact on preschool, like reading, like school readiness. So preparing those preschool age kids to start into school with some knowledge of print conventions like the alphabet and how books work and what a page is and that you read from left to right and all that. A lot of that happens in public libraries. If we can get more books into the home, that helps, and then provide as much funding as we can for school libraries and classroom libraries. So books in the schools, because a lot of the kids living in poverty don't have transportation to get to the public library, and they don't have books in the home, at least 61% of those households. And so the only time they have a chance to access books is at school. They're at school because they're transported there. So those things help. And then paying attention to the summer slide, which is, when they're off of school, kids lose a little bit, especially kids living in poverty lose the progress that they've made during the school year. And it's cumulative over the years, so that kids, by the time they're in high school, have lost a big chunk of learning if they aren't able to continue with their reading during the summer. And some challenges there are funding for activities during the summer at public libraries, or maybe keeping a school library open during the summer. And then transportation is always an issue for kids living in poverty. And then educate parents and caregivers to understand how important it is to provide their kids with reading materials as much as they can, model reading as a fun thing to do that, and the kids will follow suit. So all that kind of thing can help. And I hope that a lot of the stuff we're doing at Skill is also helping. That's what we're trying to do.
I believe it is.
Yes. Okay, so I'll stop sharing.
Would you say that the work at Skill is that your main focus is to try to combat, those things on your last slide, here's what we can do to help, that's what Skill does. Is that accurate?
Well, I would say, wouldn't you, Christine, that Cocky's Reading Express is all about that because it targets kids up until third grade, right?
Yeah, pre-K through second grade and Title I schools. So every time, and I don't want to talk all about CRE because I believe Valerie Bird Fort will be joining you all. I think it's next month.
Okay.
But that's what Cocky's Reading Express does. And
right, and that's
we go out
targeting
into the community.
The Title I schools are the, if you're not familiar with that term, it's the schools with the most low income students, mostly low income. So that's combating the poverty aspect, and targeting K through second grade is, zeroing in on that time before third grade when it's really critical for them to develop their reading skills, and having access to books is one way to do that. And CRE gives every kid that comes to a program a free book to take home. So that's, I think, was the inspiration really for Cocky's Reading Express.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that this is the 15th year of Cocky's Reading Express, and we've distributed over 139,000 books throughout South Carolina. So we've been to all 46 counties.
Yeah, and Valerie will tell you how it works and the ins and outs of working with a mascot. I'm sure when she comes to talk to you.
Now, Dr. Liz,
Thank you.
can you give us a sense of what's the state of research, academia on children's literacy issues right now? Like, what are the hot topics? What's
Oh gosh.
the hip thing that people are looking at, or is there or is they still trying to figure out the same thing they've been trying to figure out for the same past 50 years?
I think there are a lot of the same problems are sticking around, like the summer slide. It seems like to me. Jump in, Christine, if you know anything to help me out here. But
yeah, I was
hear about that.
Thinking that as well. And I'll also keep going back to bandwidth because
access.
People are now, having access. They're trying to learn, via a laptop, some type of device. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of research about this.
I think there's a lot of focus too on the importance of diversity in literature for kids. Research shows that kids engage more if the characters look like people they know or reflect their culture in some way. So, that has something to do with, I'm not basing this on any research results, but to me, it just makes sense that has something to do with, literacy issues with children from diverse groups who may feel like these books aren't for them. So why would they be interested in reading these books? Certainly it's very motivating for kids, African-American kids or kids with same-sex parents to find a book that has that, depicts that in a positive way, that they can identify with. That's super important.
Sorry, Liz. And I'm just going to piggyback on that and say even picture books and young adult books where the characters may have a disability, they're differently abled. So you will, see a child in a wheelchair or maybe missing a limb. I think all of that is important as well. And we also have the Linda Lucas Walling collection at our center, which highlights different abilities and gives examples of the way things were maybe written in the past. And there's books on ADHD and dyslexia and books for the deaf and the blind. So we have those resources as well in our collection.
Yeah, that's a really interesting part of children's literature to me, is how that type of book has evolved over time. Just books that are, provide us with the not an alternative viewpoint, but not the dominant culture's viewpoint. And they're just becoming, there's a great range of those available now where there was not before. So it's great.
Just to remind everybody, all of our LISSA people, you can jump on in here with questions if you have any. Does anyone have any specific questions for our guests? Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going with whatever I can think of next.
I was gonna say, I see online that you guys have some resources for parents and teachers, especially during COVID. Has any parents or teachers reached out to you guys about using those resources, or have you guys seen any influences based on the resources made available?
I have had a couple people reach out to me. See if I can turn my video back on because I just feel better. Sorry. Yeah, I have had a couple parents reach out to me, and I know Richland 2 school district also shared those resources as well. I don't know how many people are using them, but we, go in every day, or I go in every day and update the site, and our GA has even made sure that the links are still working, because originally a lot of that stuff we put up, we thought, okay, this isn't going to last too long. And a lot of the resources were free probably till like August 1st or June 30th. So we've gone back in to make sure, everything is still working, and to see what other opportunities are available that we can share on that site as well. And if you are familiar with something that's not on there, please let us know and we'll put it up there. Any other questions?
Do you guys find that the literacy challenges in our state cut across various demographics and socioeconomics and geography? Is literacy challenges more prominent on, say, our rural counties or our coastal counties or our upstate counties or our, that sort of forgotten pocket up at the North Carolina border? Do you see differences, say, city versus country?
I can't really speak to that, but I know that, poverty has a lot to do with literacy rates for sure, and ability to read.
I mean, I don't have the data in front of me, but I've been all over this state with Cocky's Reading Express, and personally, I think, it is maybe a little worse in rural areas. They seem to have the smaller library, or it's further away to get to, and transportation is an issue. So that's just my personal opinion. And I know with grants that I've worked on in the past, we've tried to concentrate on those areas. And I have just experienced working with some school districts and libraries in those specific areas. Like I said, I don't have the data in front of me, but that's just my personal opinion.
Interesting. Very interesting. Who else has got a question for our guests? You want me to volunteer you?
No, I have a question. I'll go.
Hey,
Hey, have you, Liz or Christine, run into any censorship issues with children's literature? Because I used to work at a public library, and one of the parents complained about Tango Makes Three. If you've heard of that book, they
Sure.
wanted it off the shelves because they didn't feel like their children should be exposed to same-sex parent household. Have you
Even
run
though they're penguins.
Yeah, have you run into any issues like that?
Well, Tamika, what were you in, a public library or a school library? I'm curious. Uh-huh.
I have not had those issues.
We almost had
experienced
a sort of a objection to a book. I'm trying to remember what book it was. A couple years ago, and I collected I collected reviews of the book, you know, preparing to defend. It's just our library is a little different than, you know, a public library or a school library because we don't really serve children directly as much as those libraries do. So we don't have people coming in with their kids to check the books out and be horrified by the book about the same-sex penguins raising an egg together. You know, it's not the same audience, but certainly in our children's literature courses, we, you know, discuss censorship, and we have examples in our collection that are, you know, books that have been challenged many times, and we can use as examples in our instruction. So it's good to have those on our shelves, really, for us, whether we approve of the book or not. It's a good example of something that someone might challenge. And what would you say to them about, you know, we can kind of role play with that. So it's good. But of course, you know, when you have a challenge, if you have a good collection development policy in place, then you're ready. That's your, like, look at, this is what we follow. This is the procedure we're going to go through to deal with the materials challenge. And that just, I encountered a challenge my first year. I was a school librarian for a long time, and my first year as a school librarian, there was a book challenge, and thank goodness there was already a collection development policy that clearly laid out what I needed to do. And ALA also offers a lot of support if you have a materials challenge. So that was helpful too. But the main thing you do is just gather evidence. You know, what have the experts said about this book? What are the reviews of this book? What are the benefits of this book? And let's look at the benefits just as much as we look at the, you know, what you see as a drawback. So I'm sure you've talked about that topic in your courses, but man, it's a fascinating topic to me, and you can just.
Yeah, I think my manager at the time, she listened to the parent and her concerns. Mm-hmm. And when the parent left, she told us to put it back on the shelf because it wasn't censorship.
Well, and a lot of times the parents just want to voice their opinion, and if you say, you know, well, that's fine. You know, your child doesn't have to read this book. Just, you know, don't read it if you don't like it. And sometimes that's all they need. But then a lot of times I think it happens that you say, well, if you want to make a formal complaint, here's the form to fill out. They have to actually read the book. They have to fill out the form, and, you know, you're going to send it to this committee, and this committee is going to consider it. And they don't want to go through all that. They just want to say, this book is bad.
Yeah.
And once they've had that, then they're satisfied. So
thank you so much.
Sure.
So we've just had a couple of people have stepped into the room over the past couple of minutes. So we're doing kind of a Q&A, folks. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to jump on in there. One of the things that I've found has been like an amazing resource that I never, before I started library school, never thought was so important, was like your policies and procedures of your institution. This is the guide of how to get yourself through difficult situations. I mean,
right,
I never realized how important that was, but wow, I mean, and not just in a public library, because I have had some incidents at my internship that are sort of like, well, what do the policies and procedures say? But at another internship, I was working at a museum. I was concerned about, you know, basically weeding of materials, and I didn't think they had a policy, but sure enough, they have a policy, and it's an adequate one. So that's
helpful.
Really good guiding light when you look at those policies and procedures books.
And you don't want to come up with those policies when you're in the throes of a challenge, you know, because it's upsetting. You know, you have to be you feel like you have to be really careful how you talk to people and how you deal with it. And you don't want to be making your policies at that point, for sure.
And always now have policies in preparation of a pandemic, because I learned to have to have a new policy and procedures. So that is something that you may or may not learn in library school. So be prepared for any and everything.
Right, and that was quite a project for Christine. And I think, Christine, you, I know you looked at what other libraries were doing, and that's a really good way to start. I think any policy making is to see what other libraries do and borrow, language from other people's policies that suits you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm not saying that you borrowed somebody else's policy, because this was like, our place is kind of unique and you had to like start from scratch. But I know that you were saying, we were wondering like how long should we quarantine books after they've been checked out, all that kind of questions that other libraries were asking too. So.
And don't be afraid to go to your peers. Like I really do have great colleagues, and I go to Liz all the time as my personal editor, but ask them for feedback, get them involved. Just because I may have the title of executive director, I work with a team of people. So when we were putting together these policies and procedures, I spoke with Liz and Valerie, and I was like, what do you think? What should we do? How is this? So I just think it's great if everyone works together and everything is nice and cohesive.
Right. And that's important for, your success. If there is some kind of controversy and you need everybody behind you, you've got buy-in. They're like, yeah, I helped make this policy. So of course I know what it is and I'm going to follow through with you on it. So it's important buy-in.
Oh, go ahead, Tammy.
I didn't mean to interrupt. You can finish. It's a different question.
Oh, okay. I was going to actually just follow up on what was being said, because I've had the distinct pleasure of interning this semester in the skill setting with Liz and Christine and Valerie, and personally observing all the adjustments that were made from last February when I first went in to meet with Valerie and talk to her about some projects. The library looked different than it did when I came in September for my internship, pandemic. And in learning about the changes in the procedures, there were things I hadn't thought of at all. And I thought, oh, wow, I bet you guys just kept adjusting, oh yeah, we need to revise, rewrite, add something to this pandemic policy because we hadn't encountered this before. I remember walking in one day through the front door and seeing a cart outside with a bunch of books on it. And I went, oh, those books have been there for a few days now. I wonder, are we quarantining them out here? So I had to run in and ask Val, I said, should I be doing something with the books? And, no, they've got this policy in place and how everything is handled. You have to find space for the books to quarantine. Forgive me if I'm repeating things you guys have already said. But there's nothing like the internship experience. Every time I'm there, I listen, I hear, I observe, and I learn. And the first exposure I had to these kinds of planning thoughts, having a policy for the censorship process. Dr. Copeland was the one who taught me about that. And it was amazing to me how many places did not have the policy or the collection policy in place or a weeding policy in place, because we had to do a lot of searching online, and Skill did. It was one of the few that actually did. And so in weeding, you guys talk about weeding already, the pain. Weeding, like, no, we can't let these treasures go. And yet now I'm seeing, okay, I see exactly why. And the books aren't dying. It's not like they're getting tossed into a bucket somewhere.
Right, especially for ours, because like I said, children don't actually use our books very rarely. But when we weed them and send them off to a school library or send them off with a teacher, then kids are going to be reading them. So I feel like the books are very happy to go. It makes it easy.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful experience. And you probably have already talked about internships in the first 30 minutes. Did you guys already talk about internships?
Not yet. No.
Okay, just checking. And again, my apologies. I was working with a student until 7, so I couldn't join you guys on time. But I'll be watching the recording so I don't miss anything. But yeah, if this is a good time, after Tammy asks her question, maybe we can circle back around to that.
Yes, Tammy, what was your
It sounds good. And I'm sorry it's so dark on my screen, but hi everyone. And I want to thank you for doing this. I am the mother of a baby and also an older child. And it was only when I started taking library school classes that I learned about Discus and all these amazing resources. And now, you know, with the baby again, I've been doing some of the research on I think it's called 100 Million Words, you know, some of the books on how important the very, very early literacy is compared with what we often hear about, you know, preschool being really important. And so I'm wondering, you know, I just looked at the library website and found, what's it called, like the daily, day-by-day SC family literacy calendar. And it's an amazing resource. So I guess my question is, how do you get these resources out? I mean, because sometimes it feels like there's so many amazing resources, but it's hard to connect families with them. And so, you know, in my case, I'm pretty information savvy and, you know, literacy minded, but that I just stumbled across this and didn't know about it, you know, so how does that happen? And what are the efforts being made to improve that?
Well, I'll say, you know, with CRE, obviously we're going to schools, seeing kids, giving them books, but we've also started doing family nights. So we bring families together pre-pandemic in an evening at a school or a church or wherever, and we provide them with a meal and talk to them about the importance of reading and give them tips for reading. So hopefully, you know, it's not too late. I don't think it's ever too late to learn something. I mean, I learned something earlier just from Liz's presentation. So, you know, I think when I go out and speak to communities or people or funders, because I do a lot of fundraising, you know, I'm always sharing the information, and whether it's on a website or in a class or a family night, I think just putting it out there. And I have 2 children, they're teenagers, but you know, I would read to them when they were younger, and they're boys, they do not love to read. I mean, I'm sorry, but they don't, you know. They'd rather just watch ESPN. But I don't even know where I was going with what I was going to say, because now I forgot, and that's what happens. But I know, I got it. I circled back. But I know when I am like out at a doctor's office or in a restaurant and I see all these parents giving kids a device, like it bothers me personally. And then I have to stop being judgmental and be like, okay, they could be playing an educational game or they could be reading a book, but I don't know if that's the case. So I need to just, you know, but I wish I could just carry books around with me. So when I am in a restaurant, I could be like, oh, here's a book. Here, you know, why don't you read this book instead of letting your children be on a phone? So.
And, you know, I think a lot of the way we reach parents is kind of indirectly through our work with librarians, school librarians, and people from the College of Ed who are going to be teachers. You know, we provide them with information on these resources and, you know, approaches that they can use. And that trickles down, hopefully, to the families that they're working with. So,
Christine, can I ask you a question about, so when you're out doing these outreaches, and again, I guess this is all pre-pandemic, how are you received by that sort of lower socioeconomic Title I parent when you're pushing them to get their kids to read more? I mean, is it well received, or do they seem to be sitting through it waiting for it to be over?
I think it's been well received. We've done some data collection, not as much as I would like, because we typically do the data collection at family nights. And we've only been doing those for a couple years because there's just not enough time to go in and do data collection with kids at a typical Cocky's Reading Express visit, which once again, I'll let Valerie share that information. But I've never had a parent say, why are you telling me this? Now if I went up to them while they're in a restaurant and their child's on a phone, they might get a little upset with me. So I personally haven't had anyone get upset or disappointed or say, you're not right, or why are you telling me this? So.
Does anyone else have any questions for our very special guests?
I have another question. Currently, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is not available in what I've seen, the Lexington and Columbia area. Do you guys want to maybe work with them to establish that program? That way, when you're reaching out, you can sign up families that might have younger kids, or even still try to see at a certain age to sign them up to receive free books? Or is that maybe a program, or is that something to think about?
I am familiar with that, the Imagination Library. I love it. And if I can tell people like, hey, go do this, absolutely. I'm going to promote any type of literacy. So if I could work with Dolly Parton, that would be fantastic. I've actually talked to people about, we need to bring her on campus as a speaker. Yeah. So
yes,
and Liz knows that I am the type of person who would email Dolly Parton.
Yes,
so
or tweet at her or something.
Yes.
Yeah. She's gotten answers from some pretty impressive people, actually, twittering with them or whatever, tweeting. Yes.
I will say, a colleague at the journalism school and I were trying to get an actor.
Emilio Estevez.
Yes, I had sent an email to Emilio Estevez because if y'all haven't seen it, the movie The Public is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And he is in it, and he, I believe, directed it. I'm not sure if he produced it. He may have. I actually saw it at ALA several years ago. And there's even some Breakfast Club things in there. I think even a jacket he wore in the Breakfast Club. And some of you probably are too young to even know about the Breakfast Club. Mm-hmm. It's a great movie. But I was just like, I want Emilio Estevez to come to USC and talk about.
Because he's very pro-library, very pro-library.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very pro-library. And it was just awesome to see. And I was like, I want to bring him here. So I may reach out to Dolly Parton.
Please do.
That's an interesting proposal that Laura brought up and that Christine is responding to. Because when you talk about putting books directly into the hands of children, I know they're excited about having their very own books. Because when I talked to some of my students, I asked them about that. They didn't have a book collection at home or a library at home, and they didn't have magazine subscriptions. And the idea now of having books, books are now awful things that they have to buy and read, for class. They don't read for fun. And I think that's probably that's what enchanted me way, 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 way back as a little kid listening to my mom read to me, is how magical it was and enchanting. And I loved that the books that she read to me were on my shelf. They were mine. And that was so huge. And I think that's where Dolly's genius is just mind-blowing, right? And I think, well, hey, maybe that's something that we should be doing, is helping coordinate bringing in those kinds of speakers and maybe challenging members in this group and others and saying, what can we do about early childhood literacy? How can we bolster what Liz and Christine and Val are doing? Did you already talk about your role as a Library of Congress Center for the Book in this evening?
We just mentioned that.
Okay. Yeah, they're one of the very few that's good. And I can tell you this because Dr. Copeland was very much a stickler on the research I did on special libraries. I focused on exactly the niche that skill fills. And there are only 4 in the country. Every state has a Library of Congress Center for the Book, but this is one of only 4 that's really operating on the level that I think it's just mind-blowing to me how much this one library is doing. It's phenomenal. Most of the centers for the book aren't even active. They have broken links, or they don't really have people who are actively promoting and getting out into the community. And if you look on the Skill website and you see their interactive map of every place they've been. And yeah, some of that is Coffee's Reading Express, but not exclusively. And I bet if we started tracking the number of teachers who've gone through the program here and gone on to spread all that they've learned about early childhood literacy and, you know, instilling a love of learning, don't we all have to champion that? I mean, don't every single one of us, no matter what our specialty ends up being? Because otherwise, you know, who are we? Why are we doing what we're doing? It just seems like, yeah, why not? I want Dolly. I want Emilio. I mean, man.
Maybe I can get them to come together.
You know what? Wouldn't that just be phenomenal? I love the idea. I don't know how much her speaker fee is, but I don't know. She doesn't seem to need money these days, so maybe she doesn't charge all that much. But I would totally be behind that. That's awesome. Okay,
I just want to say, I just looked up the, how do you start a program? And it is possible to start. And they have, I sent the link in the chat, but you can put in the population of children under age 5 in a community, and then they compute based on 60% of those kids participating and how much it'll cost each year. It's not terribly much. So depending on what kind of funding is out there, it's doable.
Thank
Wow.
you.
I appreciate putting that in the chat. Sorry.
Thank you.
What do you all think about, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What do you all think about those free, those things that they're putting out now, where free book exchange? You know what I'm talking about?
The little free libraries?
Yeah, the little free libraries. Do you all think that's a good idea?
I love them.
Yeah.
I have one.
Oh, you do? You have one in close to your...
I do too. I get excited when I'm driving.
Mine is mobile, and I set it up before the pandemic. So my hope is that I can go back to Soda City and get them to let me set up and just give away.
Yeah.
But I go around donating to them. I know where they all are in my area, and I donate.
That's great. Because of COVID, though, yeah, I guess people are going to have to be more careful about exchanging, touching other people's books and that type of thing.
Yeah, it's normally kids. It's because I collect for kids and I want to give away to kids, but that's been a real conundrum for me. And I don't know, Christine, Liz, how would you handle that? For me to open up my suitcases full of free books for children, they always want to look through them. And we can't do that. I thought, well, I could put them into big Ziploc bags and seal them with tape so that they can't open them. They just have to look at the covers to figure out if that's what they want. And then have hand sanitizer.
At the Lexington Library, they are not allowing donations right now because of COVID.
I kind of like your idea, Barb. I mean, if you put the book in a bag and sealed it, and you could even put like on the front of the bag, like kind of a just a little summary of what the book, kind of like a blind date book type thing. But on the front, you put whatever it is on the piece of paper and you put the date on there. And then I guess you would give the bag, but then again, you got to worry about giving the bag to someone. But you could say, this book was put in here on however many days, and then people could do the math of it's been quarantining for 3 days.
Okay.
But then you still got to worry about touching the bag.
True.
So
and the hand sanitizer? I don't know. It's like, if I was a mom with little kids going to Soda City, I'd be dipping them in hand sanitizer, like, a vat of hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
But that's been such a conundrum for me. And honestly, some of the little free libraries. There's one right down the street in my neighborhood. They've converted it to a food pantry. And it's I guess a sign of the times. They still have books in there, but it's mostly food now, which kind of made me sad. But yeah, the little free libraries would be a fun thing to champion as well. And having people make them and put them up in their life, just in their neighborhood, on the block, I think that'd be fun.
If they can't get to
So
the
this is
actual library.
Yeah.
Then
Just a fun fact. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was done. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you ever make it up to Columbia and inside Davis College, there is a little free library in the hallway. And I believe LISSA purchased it several years ago, and we were going to put it outside of Davis, and the university said no.
I asked about that too when I first came onto campus as staff, and they were like, no, because I was working with the student athlete population. They said, no, you can't give them out to athletes because they can't have anything that's not available to every other student on campus. And I was like, well, I'm fine with going out on Green Street and sitting there and handing out books. I have no problem doing that. I haven't pursued it since, so I don't know what they would do, but what was the rationale for saying, no, you couldn't put it outside of the college?
It's all part of, what's the terms I'm looking for, Liz?
Like
like the ground, the building.
They were worried about who's responsible. What happens if the door gets broken off, or who's going to fix it, and who's going to make sure the books stay dry. It's like, it was just like too much responsibility.
A lot of red tape. Hey, we're coming up on an hour, so I'd like to go ahead and sort of wrap it up for our guests and thank them again for coming out and spending an hour with us. That was really awesome of you guys. And heck, I know everybody's been working real hard, and now it's the end of the day and you got to come try to entertain a bunch of little but I think we learned a lot.
Thank you.
And you had a great,
thank you guys.
Your insights were really, really fantastic. And so thanks again for coming in, and we'll look forward to talking to Valerie soon about sort of the next arm of this organization,
CRE,
the outreach. And but thanks again for coming. We're gonna have a quick discussion amongst the LISSA membership. But all
right, thank you for having us. It was fun.
Yeah, you did great.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Will do.
Good night, Liz. Good night, Christine.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
So
thank you. And
yes.
Sorry, my internet. If you all have questions, feel free to email us.
And also just visit whenever you're coming into town. You just have to let them know ahead of time that you're coming.
Yes. And I'll go ahead and sign off so y'all can have your meeting, but thank you so much. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. And now I'll just go feed some teenagers.
Good night.
Bye, y'all.
You're the coolest. All right, folks. So the folks who are left, now this is our first actual LISSA meeting with our general LISSA membership. And so there's not a ton of folks on here, but we're going to barrel through this thing quickly. So thanks for coming in. Thanks for stopping by. And, LISSA is the student organization for the SLIS program, for the MLIS program at USC. And we really are the team that we have right now in fall 2020. We've been working pretty hard to try to come up with ways to engage our membership. And this is the first sort of stab at that, especially in this difficult virtual environment that we find ourselves in the midst of this horrifying and horrible pandemic, which is still raging and getting worse. So I don't think that we're going to be able to go bowling anytime soon together. But we do have some, we do want to do some outreach, and we want to do some professional development, et cetera, et cetera. And most of all, we want to be sort of social and have some camaraderie amongst our students, both in Columbia and abroad, because one of the things that I think that we would all agree on is lacking in our program is that sort of sense that we're all in this together and that we kind of know each other and that our program is friendly with each other. So we're trying to do some different things to remedy that. And one of the things, like I said, I'm going to barrel through this because we're already an hour in, and I think everybody's kind of ready for something just to decompress. But there are a couple of things that we need our membership to kind of be aware of and to participate in if they so desire. And one of those main things is our, just going down my agenda here, one of the things that we need to talk about, or at least mention, is that we do have the LISSA calendar. This is our big fundraiser that we do each year, and we are putting together the sort of faces of LISSA out there. And so we're working on our calendar. You should have seen some interesting, some social media stuff. We've been doing that. And if you haven't already submitted an image to us and would like to be included in this calendar, we'd sure love to have you. So you can get in touch through us, mainly through our Facebook page is probably the simplest and easiest way to get there. But if you'd like to participate in our calendar, is the 2021 LISSA calendar. And so we'd love to have you. And moving on to item number 6, old business. One of the things we talked about last week was having an open meeting for members. We're doing it right now. Another thing we need to talk about is the changes to our constitution that falls under new business. So we are looking at changing our constitution for LISSA. LISSA, the constitution's pretty good. It has a language in there about supporting diversity and supporting our student body and sort of what we're supposed to do. But also the main change of our constitution that I have proposed for this semester, and which would continue until fall 2021, would be to remove the requirement for our general membership to pay a one-time $20 fee. I don't have the language of this constitutional amendment in front of me, but just know that we will probably vote on this in December, in early December. And the main change that we're making to our constitution is to make, at least for this academic year, to make our membership free to all students enrolled at the USC School of Information School MLIS program, right? So that is one of our main changes. Another thing that we really are looking forward to, and we need to do some planning on, and we'd love to have input from general membership if anyone's still on there, is we are going to, I, as your president, am stepping down because I'm about to graduate in December. So they're going to need to do a new election, I suppose, in spring to see who is going to guide this this organization through these, at least spring semester. On our constitution, it says that they have elections every fall, so they'll need to do them again. But I do think that we need to put into place the methods by which we elect our leadership. There are 4 listed leadership positions in the Constitution, and so it needs to be discussed how this thing is going to go down before it happens, or else I'm afraid it will fall by the wayside. So this week I'll be putting together an election committee, and again, to our general membership who are on this call, or anyone that you know who is in our program, if you'd like to be a part of how the election might work, you can sure drop me a line. My email is wc7@email.sc.edu. Item number 7C, our next meeting, December 2020. We are having another speaker. I believe we're trying to line, oh, no, that's a SCOM thing. Well, we're going to have a meeting in December 2020. It'll be brief. We may or may not have a speaker, so we'll need to discuss what day and time that will be. At that time, we'll also vote on these changes to the Constitution. That's the state of the LISSA right now, and so I will hereby open up the floor to comments from our members in general. Anyone from the sort of board, the LISSA board, anyone have any questions, concerns, comments? Now's the time. Lay it on us.
We should also have a speaker next week, November 19th, if I'm from 6:30 to 7:30. They kind of discussed that the coordinator, they kind of discussed that she'd be talking Valerie, the coordinator will be coming next week through Zoom as well to talk about the Cocky's Reading Express and kind of diversity in children's literature.
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. Obviously, that was slipped past me. I didn't understand that had been finalized and scheduled. So yes, please join us again, same time, same channel here. We'll have Valerie's going to come in and chat with us, which should be really interesting. And we'll kind of hopefully piggyback on some of the things we've talked about tonight. Who else?
I was just looking at the Constitution. Tamika, thanks for the link. Section 3 says that if an officer graduates or is removed mid-academic year, and Warren's gonna graduate, yay! Congrats on that in advance. It just says that an election can be held for that position in January.
Okay.
And under 4, section 4, vice president of LISSA serve in place of the president when he is absent and assume the presidency until elections are held, should it become vacant during a semester. So I think we're covered for transition.
Yeah.
In the short term, but the method of is not spelled out.
These kinds of things need to be discussed and probably some language put into our Constitution. And just your reading that out loud reminded me that we need to also have somebody look at the Constitution. We need another constitutional committee to take a peek at this thing and make sure that the language is in a gender neutral format so that we are in line with sort of what our field is doing right now. Because if our Constitution says if the president can't work, if he can't work and the vice president steps in, then that's a problem. We need, even if it's just optics, that language needs to be changed.
Oh, that's just until elections are held. And in the instance that you described, that'll be January. So literally we'll have a winter break because when is your graduation and do you get a ceremony?
Well, they're doing a virtual hooding.
Woo!
So, and that's on December 12th.
Oh, okay.
12th, yeah. I think it's
all right.
So, but yeah, that's coming right up. And, you know, that's one of the reasons, Barbara, I wanted to talk about having an elections committee, because if you want to if everyone wants to take one step forward, you know, you could do that, but I don't want to be the one that decides it.
No, I think that's a great idea. You know, we'll go through, discuss, update.
Who else has got some questions or comments?
Well, if I can jump in here,
Sure.
I just want to say it's wonderful to have the virtual format because I don't live in Columbia, I live in Greenville, and I would get the emails about all these cool things happening. And I think it's been an issue in general, not just through SLIS and the, you know, our corner of the university, but this is an online degree program. And I can't go to a headshot session on campus or, you know, any of the many other things. So COVID has prompted, like, this is kind of the first time I can participate in a lot of things. If one day life goes back to normal, I would hope these meetings would continue to be virtual. And I also want to say, you know, what you mentioned about that, not feeling like we're really in it with other people. Like, there are people that pop into my classes that I sometimes see like a couple semesters in a row. I've helped out with some of the classes, so sometimes, you know, students from those classes are there. But I think this is a really big issue for our program because I'm actually doing some work on, you know, how can we rethink the MLIS degree and researching like what other universities are doing. And one of the things people say, like one of the values of the MLIS degree is that experience, like getting to know other people and having professional colleagues and then emerging into the profession, you know, not only because a lot of people already have the library experience or some experience before they start out in the program. So one of the values added is, you know, I feel like I'm part of a community. I've got these classmate, colleague people. And I was thinking, reading that, I was like, I don't have that at all. Like, we had that really nice day in Columbia at the very beginning of the program, but that's it, right? And it's great that we're not required to be face-to-face. It makes it convenient for everyone. But I wonder if there could be some kind of a, I don't know, once a year virtual thing, like a workshop or something.
Yeah. Tammy, thank you for mentioning that. And again, you know, I think LISSA could fill that void of this sort of lack of there really is a lack of sort of a team spirit or something with our program. And if you, I don't know if you caught my mention of the student satisfaction survey that our program has sent out recently, but I would definitely encourage you to encourage others as well as yourself to go take this survey, because these are the things they're looking for. They want to know about making us happier, because I get a sense that there's a lot of disconnect in our program on a lot of different fronts, but they don't really know about it. So again, they need this data to be able to take to their planning meetings and say, how can we make this more whatever?
Is that, I'm just looking, is this like the whole university student feedback survey?
No, this is one that Laura Thorpe sent to our student body a couple weeks ago, I think. And it is,
Okay,
so if you search for her name, you should be able to find it.
thanks, because I hadn't heard about that.
Yes, please.
Oh yeah, here it is, October 28th. Okay.
Right. I will try to perhaps, if I can fit this link in the messages here, I will. Bing.
Yeah.
I think it's on the Facebook page
Yes.
too.
Yes, we added it to our Facebook page.
But you can put the link on too if you want.
Right. So look, you know, LISSA is trying to address some of these issues. Now, you know, the weirdest part of it all is that, you know, we're all kind of here 2-ish years. So there's only a few things you can, and you know, your first semester, you're just shell shocked that you're in grad school. But we're trying to address these things, Tammy. So I appreciate you chiming in on that.
And dumb question, but how do I find the LISSA Facebook page?
Go to Facebook and search for LISSA. I really don't know.
I tried that. Is there,
Here, I will look at it. I'll get it right now for you.
Thank you.
We'll send you a link.
It only pops up as
LISSA?
LISSA for me now. So I will double check for you the actual name. It starts out university. It says LISSA hyphen University of South Carolina. And then it should pop.
like the full word?
Yeah,
Okay.
LISSA and then hyphen, and USC is spelled out
Okay,
completely.
great.
And that should bring that up for you. And then have you found us in Garnet Gate as well?
Yep, okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, Tammy and our other, you know, non-board member visitors and membership, Juliet just made a great point that.
Yeah, I was going to mention it. I didn't want to interrupt anyone, but yeah.
I used to do this in class. I had some in-person classes, so I would every now and then just pipe up in the middle of class and be like, "Hey, everybody! By the way, I'm a member of LISSA, and you guys should be too." So, if anyone has any live classes, or if you find a way to work in the fact that we do have a student association and it is currently free to join, they can go to Garnet Gate, and that's how we're kind of capturing their metadata about how to get in touch with them later. But we're trying.
Yeah, we just picked up another member while you were speaking. I just approved them.
I was gonna say Garnet Gate, like, yeah.
And
I
Tammy,
put it in the
hear
chat
you.
too, the Garnet.
I didn't even get to do the one day in Columbia, you know, orientation thing. I just was told to go take some online classes, do this, do that, fill out that form. I have felt so disenfranchised. And I remember asking around several times, you know, we need community now more than ever, but this, you know, but when this happened to me, it was before the pandemic.
Right.
And we've talked about that. And that's why, you know, membership has to get off the ground. And I feel like this is a ton of progress. You know, we're all here tonight. We're talking. Noah and Callie, and is that Cam? Are you guys?
Camilla, it's Camilla, Barb.
Camilla, thank
Yes.
you. I'm so glad to see you here. Thank you. It makes me feel good. It's like, oh, there's more of us. Yay. Wow, this is awesome.
Does anyone ever, just so we could sit here and chit chat all night, but does anyone have any sort of firm questions or comments, something that they, I guess you'd call it a burning desire. You need to get it off your chest immediately. Anyone?
Well, what should we do with the alumni members? Is there a way we can keep in contact with them so that they can still feel a part of
Well,
LISSA?
Tamika, I don't really have a ready answer to that, but most of the alumni, I believe, are still friends of ours, or they like us on Facebook. And so they can keep abreast of what we're doing through that pretty passively. That's the only thing that comes to mind as far as I know. Now, I don't think it would be too hard if we did a little digging and a little bit of polite question asking of specific people. I don't think it'd be terribly difficult to get to get in touch with some of our alums if we wanted to try to have some kind of grand homecoming reunion or something. I mean, I think, or if we wanted to try to get someone from the field. And let's face it, if they're an MLIS holder in South Carolina, they very likely got their degree from Carolina. So I think we could definitely discuss ways of outreach to our alums and see what that might look like. Is that?
Yeah.
Sounds great. And COVID might be a good time for that too, because everyone, I mean, I know we're kind of zoomed out and all, but it might be a good time to say, hey, we're having a virtual thing. And I don't know, doesn't need to be that long, but just, hey, let's get together. And then maybe there's no Facebook page for alums, is there? I mean, that might be a nice way.
There probably is. We just have to search and find it. Somebody.
That's what I was thinking. Don't we have a MLIS alumni group or no?
Well,
Nobody knows.
I don't intend on disliking our Facebook pages when I graduate. I hope to, keep an eye on it.
I hope not.
Right. I mean, my point being is I don't think that you necessarily need a different page for alumni members of LISSA or alumni members of the MLIS of Carolina, but.
Okay, and is there another Facebook thing that I'm missing beyond the LISSA?
You need to be a member of the MLIS students at University of South Carolina if you're not already.
I'm not. Okay.
Yeah. Why don't we put links on the Garnet Gate and for the different Facebook groups? Maybe that would help. There's just the one USC MLIS students.
Yeah, that's the only one I know of.
And then there's USC School of Information Science. We all follow different colleges and divisions, but membership can follow up on that. That was actually part of our first membership email exchange, was exploring different avenues for reaching out and bringing people together. And Tammy, even, what I'd be happy with, even if we all just once a month had a Zoom and said, all right, bring your own wine, bring your own books, and let's talk. I think that would be great, just to foster that sense of community.
Yeah, we could do like a book talk or something.
Oh yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great.
Like 5-minute,
I think it'd be wonderful, because I know we're all sort of smarting right now and, battle weary and fatigued, and we'll pursue it. I will add that to my notes on membership.
So there is also a,
Go ahead.
can you hear me? Yeah. So there is also an Instagram account. So if you want, you can follow that also.
Yeah, I think that was a good start on Garnet and Gate.
Okay.
And in our last membership meeting, we talked about our LinkedIn account, LISSA LinkedIn account. So what do you think? Are we creating any LinkedIn account?
That's a good question. Maybe we should investigate that and take it back to Warren and see if we can get it on the agenda while he's still here.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, here's the thing. I don't care. That sounds awesome, but whoever does social media is going to be responsible for that too.
Yeah, and it is a lot of responsibility. especially toward the end of every semester.
Well, here's the thing about social media. You guys know this probably, but you know, it's best to do a couple of them really well than to try to do all of them
Yeah.
half acre, you know. So, but yeah, we should talk about that. And you know, I'd sure be open to just about anything, let's say. So, but hey, let's wrap this meeting up because I'm exhausted and I know everybody else is. We will try to meet again, say early December, but we'll see y'all again next week too. So maybe we can fold the next week's meeting into some kind of a social drop-in something. I don't know. You know,
I fully plan on bringing wine to the next one. Yeah.
That's cool. Anyone have anything else that they need to get off their chest? Okay.
I think on the 13th is our deadline for the photo submissions for the calendar.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of time left.
And thank you, Tamika. You guys have done a great job. Really
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
on the
Thanks,
promotion.
Laura, too. Thank you.
You guys are brilliant. And I'm just, and so responsive. Thank you.
Tamika, it's all you. You
No,
are
Laura, it's you.
head.
It's you.
Okay, everybody's beautiful and wonderful and intelligent and smart.
You're beautiful too, Warren. It's okay.
Oh, yes.
I thank everybody for showing up and hanging out, and we'll catch you next week. Okay.
All right. See you
All
next
right.
week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Nice meeting you.